Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Go Lumio webinar. I really could not be more excited because if you don't know who I have on screen here with me, you are in for such a treat. We've got Michelle Conway-Gray, who used to work with us here at Lumio, and we're so lucky to have her back today because Michelle has some really cool stuff to share with you. So just a reminder, if you've got any questions throughout the time today, just drop it in the chat. I'll be in there hanging out with you, answering any questions if I feel like. If it's a good question for Michelle, I'll pop it onto the screen for her to take a look at as well. Make sure you stay all the way till the end so that you have your certificate that you can earn for your time today. And we'll also have some announcements and resources at the end as well. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Mish, for kicking us off. As usual, this feels so surreal. Mish and I used to do this all the time together, and it's been almost a year since we've done it since. So I'm super excited to be with everyone today, wherever you're joining us from. So today is all about escaping into learning the end of year reviews. So all of us are coming up on that time of year, starting to think about our end of year. How are we teaching that last minute content? And I'm going to show you my thought process using Lumio. Alrighty, so if you do want to join my session today, it's not a mandatory thing, but you might be able to explore my file that I created a little bit more if you do join today's session. Mish put it in the chat for everyone who wants to join, but if you want to follow manually here, you can just go to lumioclass.com, join as a guest, and then my class ID is always 949727. So I'll pause for 30 seconds to give everyone who wants to join some time to join in. And while you all do that, I am going to quickly introduce myself. So my name is Michelle Conway-Gray. Currently, I'm an educational consultant and I create content. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. So I do have the privilege of kind of working for myself, doing PDs, webinars. I also build content for different districts. So I get involved with different projects that they have going on and help them kind of get to the finish line. I've had a really interesting, unique, 10 years in education. So I was a 7th and 8th grade math teacher. I think several of the folks here today will probably be secondary teachers, but this is actually could be used in any K-12 classroom. But I myself was a secondary teacher in Charleston, South Carolina for several years. After that, I felt my love for technology in the classroom while I was a teacher. We had iPads at the time, so I was trying all these like new things. Google Classroom was coming out. I was like, oh my God, this stuff is so cool. So I fell in love with that. And I became an instructional technology coach in the school district of Philadelphia for several years. And that's when I started to really dip my toe into the ed tech world. So you'll see today that I use a couple different tools, and I'm sure it's very similar tools to what you're also using in your classrooms. But that's where I learned about smart boards. That's where I learned about Lumio. That's where I learned about Smart Notebook, if anyone's been around for that long. So I really started to kind of get into all those tools. And then after years of doing that, I had the privilege of moving into Lumio full-time, working as a PD specialist. Just recently, probably almost a year ago, which is so crazy, stepped away to do my own thing and also become a mommy. So if you do hear a crying baby at some point, it's not in your imagination. It is probably coming through my screen. So if you ever want to get connected, there is my handle. I love to post on Instagram, and I was posting on X as well at the time. I post tech tips. So if you're ever interested in learning more about Lumio and Smart, those are some tools that I do like to post about. So I love following teachers there and connecting with educators there as well. So that's a little bit about me. So let's dive in. Hopefully you were able to get in today's session as a student. So let's see how many people we got today. Nice. We have 9 students, which is always fun to see in the middle of the day. Some teachers either abroad joining in, or maybe some folks in the middle of their lunch period coming in a webinar, which is so fun. So amazing, 9 different students. So today's objectives, what are we going to look at? We're going to learn a little bit about what are digital escape rooms. Have you ever used them before? We're also talk a little bit about how I could use this for unit reviews. What are some of the tools that I'm using to do escape rooms? And then as well as a little creation at the end. I know this is a quick webinar, so I'm hopefully going to be able to just kind of show you some things that I did to create Lumio. But if you ever want to, or create an escape room in Lumio, but if you ever want to maybe try this in the future, I do have some really good resources in the end for digital escape rooms. All right, so that's a little bit about today's session. First things first, you can put this in the chat if you would like to, but for those 9 students that are also joined in my lesson, this is called Shout It Out. I just want to quickly hear, how are you reviewing for the end of the year? How are you reviewing units in your classroom to start? I just want to get a general feel. So if you have a moment, put it in the chat or in the Shout It Out, whichever one you're more comfortable with. How are you reviewing units in your classroom? Just trying to get a little pulse check here. Jeopardy games, classic. Love the good old Jeopardy game. Always a good one. Here's some coming through here. Scavenger hunts. I love a good scavenger hunt. I feel like a scavenger hunt and escape room, there's a lot of things that you could maybe use between the both of them, like the clues and stuff. I think would be really cool. Compiling Lumio files. So we have a Lumio person here. Someone said study guides. That was the one I was thinking about. I used to just print out a packet of just information, and then the kids would fill out the packet at the end. Study guides, right? Things of that nature. I think I see in the chat Kahoot. Always a good one. Sue Joe Feely. I feel like I haven't seen that name in so forever. Hopefully you're doing well. Jeopardy review is in the chat. Drag and drop activities, rank order, all these good stuff. So station rotations. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach your end of year reviews, end of unit reviews, test time, all those things. I like to kind of be creative. So you're going to see the creative end of my brain today and how I do end of year reviews. So let's talk about escape rooms a little bit. So a digital escape room is an online game where participants solve puzzles and riddles to escape from a virtual environment, often within a set time limit. Because I taught secondary, I did give a time limit. You don't necessarily have to give a time limit if you teach littles, but I like to give my secondary students, like, you have 30 minutes to get out of this digital escape room in order to be successful in the lesson. So with that being said, have you ever done a physical escape room? Maybe some of you have gone to like a place and done an escape room with friends, or some of us done like a colleague's one before. So you can do that same concept, but virtually. You really just have to have the right tools in place in order to do that digital escape room. So the 3 tools that I typically use when I'm making these digital escape rooms are Lumio. I like to use Google Forms. You'll see why. And then I also like to use Canva. Canva is pretty broad. You could use Google Slides. You could actually just build this entire thing in Lumio. But I do like to use some of the features in Canva, and you'll see how I use both. I think a hybrid, I think someone said like a hybrid escape room with Lumio. That's pretty much what I did as well. I did like a hybrid experience. So just let's talk about a little bit about escape rooms. The ideal teacher for this. This is going to be good for the teacher that wants to be really creative with their end of year reviews. I would say it's also that teacher that, like, you've been in the classroom for a decent amount of time and you have some of these good resources where you're like saying to yourself, well, I loved this lesson, but unfortunately I used Google Sites for this and it just does not work anymore. So let's talk a little bit about what I mean by that. Back in the day, here's the original lesson. Back in the day, let me silence my phone because I know it picks up everything. Let's open up the original lesson here. I made a digital escape room using Google Sites. It was like the big thing back then. I loved it. Now let's look at this lesson a little bit. I didn't give myself a planning document, nothing. So I have no idea where this Google form went. apparently doesn't exist anymore. So I couldn't even find if I wanted to. Then I have all these random clues for my students to figure out, and I have no idea what half of these things mean. This is an error now. We've all been here before where you've created these amazing things because maybe you sat in a Google Sites PD and you made this amazing thing and then none of it works anymore. So I have this amazing lesson that I did think through and the kids loved it. I now just have to find a new way of doing it. So that's when I recreated this exact escape room using Lumio. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. Okay. So this was great. I just wanted to freshen up a little bit. So I would say that's like the classic teacher for an escape room. You're willing to put in the work because there is going to be a lot of planning around making a digital escape room. So what I mean by that is I go in with some thought process before I even start creating. What is this digital escape room going to look like? I use Google Docs for this, so I just like to type out my thoughts. You could literally write this in a notebook. It doesn't have to be this deep, but I came up with my story. I came up with what are my locks going to look like. So if you've been in an escape room before, you know that there's different lock types. There's 4-digit codes. There's letter codes. There's that thing that you have on a locker back in the day, a lock. So a lock code. So there's a lot of different things that you could do for that escape room. So you have to really imagine it and think about it. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to do like a 4-digit code. I'm going to do a 4-letter code. I'm going to do a directional kind of thing that the kids have to figure it out. And then the 4 letters. So I was teaching social studies. I kind of made this lesson up. I was actually not a social studies teacher, but I was teaching social studies. So the story behind this is that they learned Gettysburg. So the 4 main things at the end of the unit that I wanted them to know is what were the causes of the Civil War, what were who were the key figures, what were some of the key battles and what did they do? What were the results to the war? And then what was the ending call? Like what was the end results? What happened moving forward from that Civil War? So those were the 4 takeaways that I wanted them to know by the end of the unit. And to review this in order to go into the test and feel confident, I made this fun escape room. So you'll notice that each one of the clues goes with one of those key standards. The causes, the figures, the key battles, or what were the end results, the outcomes. So those are kind of how I start these escape rooms. So I always start with a little planning ahead of time instead of just going into the tool, because now, because I have all this mapped out, this is where I start using some of these other tools. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about my escape room. So once I have that planning done, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I got 2 monitors going here so I can see questions if you have any questions. Now let's talk a little bit about the actual escape room. So how I have my students do it is they log into Lumio and they only have access to the actual escape room because I'm doing this PD. You see all these other slides, but realistically, they only see the escape room when they join my lesson. Now I have all these slides and we'll go through, I'll give you some time to kind of go through the escape room, but it's slides 7 to 22. Okay. Doesn't need to be that crazy. You don't need to have all these other slides. You could just have it so simple, but I just want to show you what I would say like a really planned out escape room looks like. So I had the title slide. The students go and click on this form. So when they are doing the escape room, they have the Google form open and they have the Lumio tab open. So that's kind of how my students always did the escape room. They can work in partners. They can do it by themselves. I may have a timer up on the board or up on I have a clock, maybe I have a clock at the front of the room. I have the timer up just so they can see that they have 30 minutes to complete this escape room and get out if they can. So this is where they put in their answers. You can see that there's little locks on the door so they know that if they're right or wrong. Okay, so this will change. The answer will say like, good job if they got it right. And then they can move on to the next room in the digital escape room. So let's see. And then the students just kind of go through and they figure out each one of the clues. So now let's talk about the Lumio aspect of it all. So I know when I'm using Lumio, there's certain tools that lend themselves really well to an escape room. Any of the games, drag and drop. I think someone said that they use drag and drop. Any type of drag and drop activity, linking. The linking feature is a really important thing to do, to know in order to be successful in escape rooms. Grouping, things of that nature. I use every type of skill I can find in Lumio to make this a successful escape room. So for example, I use pull hints. That's a super important skill of knowing like locking feature. So this escape room, I would say, is not for a beginner user. I would say it's for someone who knows Lumio, knows the tools. So if you're like brand new to Lumio, I would say like maybe putting this down as like a goal to get to, because you're going to need to know a lot about Lumio in order to kind of get going here and planning this out. So I have pull tabs so the kids know that they can pull for hints, and then they kind of get going. So I'm going to give you guys probably like a minute if you want. I'm going to open up Mish. Just remind me now with the, it's in here, right? Pacing. Yep. I knew you guys changed things around a little on me. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to kind of go through, let's say 2 minutes to go through slides 7 to 22 on your own and kind of explore it a little bit. See what I did. I'm not going to go in depth too much on each slide, but kind of see what I did for the escape rooms using Lumio. Just kind of go through it, explore it a little bit, try and figure out some of the clues if you wanted to. Just kind of go through it. Okay. Now, if you're not in my lesson, feel free, we can drop that link again and just kind of give it to you if you want. So you just got to drag. Oh, yep, you are absolutely right. That's because Michelle, when I was doing this back in the day, I forgot to make this page an individual handout.
It's in the bottom now, that little magic one. There it is.
Thank you. Yeah, so Elizabeth, perfect learning moment for anyone who doesn't understand what just happened. Anything that you want the kids to interact with on the page has to be a space where they can interact. So I did not at the time have that ready to go. Easy peasy. Elizabeth says, hey, my student says, hey, we can't click on that. See how easy it is to just kind of quickly fix it. So that's what another thing I do love about Lumio. It's not like I have to exit it out, lose all my students. I could quickly fix that if I needed to. And we are still on student pacing. So I'm just going to kind of explore here for those that are not in it. Exactly, Elizabeth. Like I didn't have to like completely like get out, tell all my kids to chill out for a second, let me fix it. And you all know once you lose them, it's hard to get them back a little bit. So I do love that quick editing feature. So clue 1 is just a quick little matching game. These kids are going to sit here and try and match, but as they're matching, they should see that something's happening when they make the match. There's like these little numbers down here. What do those numbers mean? And so they may see a clue pop up. I don't give them obvious answers here. And then they'll come over here and then say, okay, I think I saw that said it's going to be 1, 8, 5, 6 when I get this all figured out right. 1, 8, 5, and 6. Let's see. Okay. And I did take it one step further. You'll see that I made each little drag thing, not just a white box. I made it like this like old rustic looking paper. If you are an advanced user, I would say like you can customize the games to like fit your theme. Instead of using the themes Lumio has in there, you can customize it. So that's how I kind of made it very like in the theme. Okay. And then they just come over into the little code here and they say 1856. So they worked on their what led to the Civil War. Okay. What were the causes? All right, now that time is going by so quick. Those boxes are too small. All right, so that's a perfect question. Those boxes are very tiny, but when you have images, all right, there's these little blue boxes off to the side of the responses. And when you click on those blue boxes, it makes it bigger for them. So it does actually magnify it so they can look at it and say, okay, slavery goes with, let's see here. No, not that one. No, not that one. Let's see that one. Okay. So you can see that those little blue boxes magnify it for you. Alrighty, in the chat, what are some things that you saw that you were like, that's interesting. Okay, I like that. You can see in slide or in the room 2, it's a little bit different. This time around, the kids are actually going to this website first. So linking, huge skill for Lumio. Linking, they're going to go to this random puzzle, and now they have to do this puzzle, and then that's going to expose the next step where they do this, and then they find out that this spells out 4 letters. So not each room isn't just like a matching. I sometimes have extra steps in there as well for them to figure it out. So this should take them like 30 seconds. So I try to combine a bunch of fun things that I see and put it into one. And I like Lumio because I can kind of put it all into one by like linking things and that nature. So that's kind of why I like using Lumio as my vessel. And then let's go here. Froze a little. Key maps or key battles. This one is really easy as well. This one is just the kids are just trying to figure out from that hint. They're going to read this article. So instead of having to print out the articles and all that nature, I like linking. So they just go to this article and then they're going to try and figure out the battles, and they're going to move these around. And when they do that, they can use, say, their tools in Lumio, and maybe they use like an inking tool. And then they're like, okay, well, they went down this way, and then they went this way, and then they went this way. So that was the directional one, okay? So they can figure out the directional key battles. Again, just fun things that they can do in here. And again, saving me a lot of time where I don't have to print things out. Everything is just linked in here. And then it kind of just wraps up with, again, just another little drag and drop clue. And then finally they wrap up with just a little final reflection. I always like to get out of them, like, what do you think about this escape room? Like, what did you get out of this? So what are some things that you saw? Sorry, I think I already said to do this. I forgot to circle back. What are some things that you liked, saw, interested in terms of the student experience? Okay, and we're going to get in a little bit of the teacher experience in the last 10 minutes here. Vertical locking feature, right, for timelines. I know a lot of people who like to use that timeline feature for social studies or even like math, moving things around in on a number line, maybe if you're making it a math escape room. But yeah, so many different activities in one adventure, and the kids are having fun. I'm just like always down for the kids to have fun every once in a while. So let's have fun with this social studies content they might not feel related to. Let's have fun with it. Let's do a fun game, gamification. I think someone mentioned in how they do unit reviews. Let's have fun with school every once in a while. So I love a good escape room. It does take a lot of planning, I will say. But once you have the planning figured out, I ran with it, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about creation. Okay. So I said I use 3 tools for this. So how did I kind of use all these tools together? Now, the Google form is its own beast of its own. So I'm not going to review that today. If you're a Google person, amazing. I just find that Lumio does lack that Google form feature. So I did not use that. Now, something I could have maybe done at the end here is maybe have like, if you're familiar with Lumio, they have something called response. Maybe I have like a more test-like test at the end that they could maybe do at the end of the escape room just to really hone in on their learning. Some of the pages did allow immersive reader, Elizabeth. I do a lot of my text in Canva, which is not readable by that immersive reader tool. But if I were to have done all the text boxes in Lumio, that immersive reader tool would have been super helpful. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about creation, okay? So I'm going to end this session for now, just so I can show you my teacher side and how I create some of these things. So what you will see is this is for the user that uses things like Google Slides. Maybe your content teams at school give you Google Slides, like your math program, they give you Google Slides or whatever they may be. Canva, Google Slides, PowerPoint. A lot of people like to create outside of Lumio and then bring it in, okay? So Canva is kind of a very similar tool to like, say like Google Slides or PowerPoint. I like to use Canva. So you'll see here the original file. I think we call it in the industry the skeleton file is in Canva. So you'll see here I started to kind of build it out. I knew that these were just going to be like the content slides. I found this like Civil War themed design in their little templates here. And then I started to kind of go towards, let's talk a little bit more about the things that we bring into Lumio. So I see here that this one was going to be the background of the matching game. So I know in my head, this is going to be the background of the matching game. Okay. But in the matching game, I'm going to create these quick little images. Okay. And I created these little images. And these were going to be like the matching squares. Okay. Now, the biggest thing to kind of remember is what do I have to download this as to bring it into Lumio? Now, if you're just going to make it a page in the slide deck in Lumio, you're going to download it as a PDF. If you're going to use it within a game or things of that nature, you're going to download it as a PNG. These things you're not going to catch up on like right now while Michelle explains at 12:30 in the middle of the day in New Jersey. You might have to try this a couple times to kind of get in that flow of like, what do I need to download as to bring it over into Lumio. So for example, I'm going to download this page here as a PNG. So I'm going to share and I'm going to download this as a PNG, but I am going to make a transparent background because I don't want that white background. So I'm going to do this a little bit ahead of time. I'm going to make sure it says current page. I'm going to download this. Okay. Current page as a transparent background. Beautiful. That's ready to go. Okay. Ready to go. I did that. Imagine I did that for all of these. And then I am going to just download this background real quick as a PNG as well. But this time, oh, no, not what I meant to do. This time is not going to be transparent. It's just going to be just a background PNG. Now, for example, let's say this one here. It's just going to be a background. So I'm just, again, going to just download this really quick as a background. We're going to stick here for now. And most of these things are going to translate. This one is, again, going to just be a PDF. I'm just going to make this a background of a slide. So this is just going to be a PDF. I'm going to download this. Okay. Everything's downloaded. Pretend I downloaded everything. Just going to download a couple just for time's sake. Once I have everything downloaded, this is the way I like to do it. Everyone has their own ways of doing this. I know Mish, don't know if you still do it the same way that you did it before, but this is how I do it. Makes no sense, but some people do it differently. Now I download it ahead of time and then I go back over here. Now I'm ready to go. I'm going to click on new here. And if I downloaded all the slides at once, they would all come in together. But because I only downloaded that one background, I'm just going to bring in that one background for now. And then just bring that in. And now it's importing. Okay. Yep. And I probably have about 5 to 10 more minutes and then we will be done. So I see Misha saying that this is being recorded. So we have about 5 to 10 more minutes of content and then we will wrap up here. Wi-Fi is on my side here. Once it comes in, now you'll see that this is my background of my slide. So a lot of people always ask like, well, how did you bring that background in? That's simple. Brought it in just like that. So when you bring in anything, you can just say import a resource. I brought it in from my computer because I downloaded there. Now, this is where I would add things to this page. So this static background, you can't drag anything. I can't move anything. Everything would have to be re-edited back in Canva. But if you remember on this one, I had a link to the puzzle. So imagine I had my puzzle link. I forget what I have that as. What is my puzzle called? Let's see if I have it in here right here. Here's the link, make it even easier. I have everything linked on my planning document. I come back over. To put a link on a page, it's just this heart sign and then the link over here, and then I paste it in. And then I just added it right over here for step 1, okay? And then step 2, the kids were actually putting things in order. So I'm just gonna go back over here to my tools in the gallery tool. They have some shape tools here. So that's when I brought in a rectangle. I think I kept the rectangle pretty simple like this. I added some text to the page. I think it was like Barton was one of the names. And I just like highlighted B. And then I just made this a little bigger. And then shift, selected these two together, grouped it, and now it's 1. Now, I don't want the kids to resize this or change it on me. So I like using the locking features. Now, when I go to the down arrow, there's all these different locking tools. I like to use allow move. So they can't resize it. They can't change anything on me, but they can move it. So that's why these were able to move, but they can't edit it, okay? That's how I also do those pull tabs. So I sometimes will bring in like the arrow here. I'll just like kind of make it to the side. I'll bring in like another square. Maybe I resize this. I'll put some directions in the middle here. And then I also will put like pull here. Okay. And then sometimes I will just like kind of group all these together. So they're all in one. And then I kind of just place it where I want it. Okay. And then that's when you would say, allow horizontal move. Okay. Horizontal move. And then you can bring in. Whoop, whoop. Okay. Doo-doo. That's how easy that is. Okay. They can't pull it down. They can only pull it horizontal. Now with the games, last thing here is with the games, to customize the games to make sense for your escape room. I use the game-based activities. There's so many cool games that I could have used, but I think I used the matching. And then I had my little, I think one side said like, I forget what the side said, causes date. I don't know what I forget what it said on each side. And then I put my images in. So I would go to my downloads and I brought in my images. So then that's how I brought in that image there. Okay. And remember, it's transparent. So now that is right there ready to go. Okay. Now, once I had them all downloaded, I had them all in. This is the answer key essentially. And then once I had them all in, just imagine I pasted them all in. It wasn't these crazy letters. I went custom and see how these have their little images now. Then I would put the background as that other image. And once it was all said and done, it was ready to go. So custom is how you make the custom backgrounds, and then the image had this little image in the background. Okay, that's that's simple. And then that little blue box opened it up. Okay, I played around with that a little bit. Obviously, with more time, I would show you step by step by step, but because this is a short webinar, just a quick little preview of how I did that. And then once I had everything kind of figured out, ready to go, I just hit finish editing. Now, one more skill you'll want to make sure you kind of have ready to go is, say you put an arrow in here and you say like click next or something, you can actually link to other pages. So you can attach, you can bring yourself to different pages. I think it's attach link here. And then you can say page link. So that's how they were able to go from like page 1 really easily to page 2, because I attached pages to the other pages. So it was able to quickly go through them as a student. You don't have to do that. They can literally just hit next arrow, but I do like to kind of give them that option. Okay. That's like a newer one that came out recently that I don't think a lot of people use yet. If you're a Jeopardy person, that's how you would maybe make a Jeopardy. But to wrap up here, let's go back. So once it's ready to go, I start new or I assign it to my students just like that. We either do it live together or I assign it asynchronously. And then once I'm done with that, I just kind of go back into my class sessions and I kind of see how they are doing by reviewing it. Or for the Google form, I do make a Google slide presentation, a Google Sheets, to go with it so I can check their answers. And that's kind of how they get graded on it. Now, of course, I make it a big deal for students that get out in 30 minutes in class, but sometimes if it's asynchronously, I kind of just say like, did you do in 30 minutes? I don't really kind of put a lot of pressure on there because it's not really about the time, more so about them learning the topic. But the pressure of getting it done in 30 minutes is the fun of it if you've ever been in a physical escape room. But yeah, so that's kind of how I do the time and how I check their work. All righty. Let's go back into here and we'll wrap up. Mish will bring up those slides. Let's start live. And I think it's when we're both unmuted. Maybe it's picking up.
Yeah, maybe that's what's causing it. It's so interesting. So sorry, guys, if you hear that kind of like metally sound in the back. We tried to fix it beforehand, but we couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from.
So in the chat, while we wrap up here, if you want to throw some new ideas that you saw and you liked and you feel like you could use this in your classroom, why I think escape rooms lends itself really well to end of year reviews or end of unit reviews is because there's so much content that you taught. So there's a lot more information that you can make clues or room information. If it's based off of one lesson, sometimes it can be hard because there's not that much information. But of course, you can do this after one lesson. Go off if you can figure out how to do this for a bunch of different little mini lessons. But I always think it's a really fun way to review a bunch of content. And then while you do that, just real quick, I know there is, you will get a copy of this file. So at the end of this file, you'll see a copy of my Lumio file with the Ghost of Gettysburg if you're interested in taking that. How to create the Google form aspect. I attached a YouTube that I use to help me make that Google form. Until Lumio has something that is close to a Google form, I just don't think Response is the right tool for it. That's why I use Google Form. The second Lumio has something that would work for them putting in their code and finding out they're wrong, I would stop using that Google form, Microsoft Forms, whatever form you like to use. Until Lumio has it all, I probably will start eliminating it. I like Google Forms though. Lumio Library has a bunch of escape room templates. So if you're like, I don't have the time to make my own template, but maybe I can maybe I want to look at what Lumio has. They actually have escape room templates. I put in my planning doc template, and then also just like a free resource that I Ditch That Textbook is an amazing website. I forget the guy's name, but I think his name Matt Miller or something. He has like really good ed tech ideas, and this is where I got that digital escape room idea from. And then I obviously still know this stuff, so I can do this wrap up here. It's crazy. So if you ever want to look for more resources for Lumio, they do these webinars. Misha's a queen at webinars. She is so good at these. Do not miss any of her webinars. There's a YouTube channel. They have a global community, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then they have also a self-paced academy. Misha, anything I'm missing there? Obviously, all the socials, go follow. There's an amazing Facebook group called Lumio Educators. If you're ever looking for just quick tips or need a question answered, always a good spot to go. Ambassador, that's our global community. If you ever want to get more involved with Lumio or Smart, our ambassador community is an amazing place to connect with others that are inspired by Lumio, learn new tips and tricks, find out new resources. They showcase learners, and then you find out things that are coming out with Smart before everyone else with little sneak peeks. And then finally, there's a big ambassador event or a Lumio event in the summer, but it's led by ambassadors. It's called Lumio Palooza, and it's July 14th and 15th. I did this exact session last year for Lumio Palooza. And so it was really nice to kind of redo it and kind of look at it from a different perspective a year later. And hopefully you all can join this year's Lumio Palooza. I can hang out if there's any questions. I know we went over time a little bit, but if you have any questions, I can hang out and answer them, and then I'll pass it over to Mish.
I just want to remind everyone, I know Michelle is incredible and has so many little tips that she kind of dropped throughout, kind of explaining different activities, like the way that she downloads from Canva for it to come over really nicely into Lumio, or how she did the locking features in Lumio. So just a reminder that this was recorded. So since you guys all registered for it, it will be emailed directly to you once the recording is ready, or you'll be able to find it in just a few days on our YouTube as well. I dropped so many different links for you in the chat, including the ambassador application. If you're not yet one of our ambassadors, we just had a meetup yesterday. Our academy just got revamped. So if you'd like to take more courses on Lumio, we have the link there. Our Facebook group is a good place to go because we have so many different updates coming up in Lumio. Our product team is so busy at work changing Lumio every single day. So make sure you're part of the Facebook group to not just ask questions, but always know what's coming up. And Michelle also is part of the Facebook group. So if you've got a question for her, you can always tag her in there. She'll be in there. And the link in the chat, the very last one that I dropped, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here as well. If you'd like to receive your certificate for attending today's session, you have to complete that form, and then you'll get your certificate at the very end. If we don't have any other questions, can we just give the biggest thank you to Michelle? It is such a treat to have her back on our screens again, sharing her amazing knowledge of Lumio and combining so many different other tech tools that we might use in different ways, and bringing it all together for one really, really neat escape room. So Michelle, thank you for being here. It was so fun being on the screen with you again.
Of course, always fun.
And if no one else has any other questions, we'll go ahead and call it here, but we'll see you guys next time for our next webinar. There's one next week. We'll be talking about Instant Start. And then don't forget to also, another ambassador here. Welcome. We have all of our ambassadors presenting this summer at Lumio Palooza. We're super excited. July 14th and 15th. Reach out if you've got any questions about attending. Our presenters are going to get to know next week if they've been accepted as our presenters. And we've got so many sessions in the works, and we're excited to have you all. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.